You are sitting in a small room. The walls are close. A single lamp casts a weak circle of light on a wooden desk. Outside, the night is dark and quiet. It is June 5th, 1944, somewhere in England. On the desk in front of you, a radio transmitter, a notepad, a stack of coded messages, a tin ashtray overflowing with cigarette butts. Your hand is cramped from writing, your eyes burn from lack of sleep. You are about to send a message that could change the course of the largest invasion in history. Across the English Channel, hundreds of thousands of young men are in landing craft, packed shoulder to shoulder. Rifles across their laps, the smell of diesel and vomit in the cold air. They are heading toward beaches in Normandy. Many of them will not survive the morning. And you, sitting here in safety, in a borrowed room, with a pencil and a radio, are about to lie to Adolf Hitler. Not a small lie, not a careless one. A lie so carefully built, so perfectly timed, that it will help keep German tanks in the wrong place while those young men fight for their lives on the sand. Your name is Juan Pujol García. Your code name is GARBO. And for the past 2 years, you have been the most trusted spy in Hitler's intelligence network. Except you are not Hitler's spy. You are Britain's. And everything you have told the Germans, every agent in your network, every piece of intelligence, every urgent report has been a lie. The greatest double agent of World War II is not a soldier, not a trained operative, not even a British. He is a Spanish nobody who decided to fight Nazism with his imagination. And tonight, his lies might save thousands of lives. Juan Pujol García was born in Barcelona in 1912. He grew up in a Spain that would soon tear itself apart. When the Spanish Civil War erupted in 1936, Pujol saw violence from both sides, fascist brutality and communist purges. He survived the war, but it left him with a deep hatred of totalitarianism in any form. By 1940, as Europe descended into World War II, Pujol watched Nazi Germany conquer country after country. He had no military training, no intelligence experience, no connections to power, but he had a conviction: someone had to do something. And if no one else would, he would. He decided his weapon would be deception. In January 1941, Pujol walked into the British embassy in Madrid and offered his services as a spy. He told them he wanted to work against the Nazis, that he had ideas, that he was willing to take risks. The British turned him down. They saw a nervous civilian with no credentials and no clear value. Pujol tried again, rejected again. Most people would have stopped. Pujol did not. Instead, he did something extraordinary. If the British would not take him, he would approach the Germans, convince them he was their agent, and then offer himself to the British with proof of his access. It was reckless, it was brilliant, and it worked. Pujol went to the German embassy in Madrid. He presented himself as a fanatical admirer of the Nazi regime, a Spanish patriot who hated Britain and wanted to help Germany win the war. The Germans, always hungry for intelligence from inside Britain, listened. Pujol told them he had business contacts, that he could travel to Britain, that he could send back valuable reports. They gave him money. They gave him instructions. They gave him invisible ink, a code book, and a cover identity. And they told him to go to Britain and start reporting. But Pujol never went to Britain. He went to Lisbon instead, and from a small apartment in neutral Portugal, he began sending reports to the Germans about British military activity, reports he invented entirely from his imagination. He bought a tourist guidebook to Britain, he studied a map, he read newspapers and magazines, and he started writing. He described troop movements in cities he had never visited. He reported convoy schedules based on guesses. He invented details about morale, defenses, rationing. And because he was clever, he mixed real public information with plausible lies. He made small mistakes on purpose, distances slightly wrong, unit names misspelled, so that his reports felt human, not scripted. The Germans ate it up. They believed they had a valuable agent inside Britain. They started paying him. They asked for more. And Pujol, alone in a room in Lisbon, began to build something even more ambitious. He started inventing people. Imagine the loneliness of this work. You sit at a desk day after day, creating human beings out of nothing. You invent a dock worker in Liverpool. You give him a name, a background, a personality. You describe how he drinks too much, how he complains about his boss, how he sometimes overhears things at the shipyard. You invent a civil servant in London who has access to government files. You make him cautious, nervous, prone to asking for more money. You invent a soldier stationed in Scotland. You make him bitter about the cold, proud of his regiment, willing to talk if the price is right. None of these people exist. But in your reports, they come alive. You describe their habits, their problems, their moods. You have them fall ill, miss meetings, ask for time off. You have them recruit other subagents, also fictional, expanding your network into a sprawling web of imaginary informants. By mid-1942, Pujol has recruited over 24 subagents, each with a detailed backstory and consistent personality. The Germans are thrilled. They see a spy network that is rich, complex, reliable. They start sending him money to pay his agents' salaries and expenses. Money he pockets, because the agents do not exist. They trust him completely, and they have no idea that every word they read is a lie. But British intelligence is watching. In early 1942, MI5, Britain's counterintelligence service, intercepts German communications and realizes that someone in Lisbon is feeding the Germans reports about Britain. At first, they are alarmed. A German spy is active, and they do not know who he is. But as they study the reports more closely, they notice something strange. The information is often accurate, but always late. It arrives too late to be useful. And some of it is subtly wrong in ways that do not harm the Allies. Someone is playing a game. MI5 investigates further and eventually traces the reports back to Juan Pujol García. They face a choice: arrest him or recruit him. They realize that if they bring him under control, they can use his established credibility with the Germans as a weapon. He is already inside the German intelligence system. He is already trusted. All they need to do is aim him. In April 1942, the British bring Pujol to London. They give him the codename GARBO because they say he is the greatest actor in the world, and they fold him into the most ambitious deception operation of the war. Now Pujol is no longer alone. He works with MI5 case officers who help him craft messages. Every report is carefully scripted to serve Allied strategy. Every piece of intelligence is designed to reinforce what the British want the Germans to believe. But the network of fake agents must be kept alive. The Germans expect regular updates, complaints, requests for money, personnel changes. So Pujol continues the performance. One of his agents dies in a bombing raid. Pujol sends a somber report expressing grief and fear. Another agent moves to a new job, giving him access to different information. A third agent gets drunk and misses a meeting, and Pujol scolds him in coded messages. The richness and consistency of these details convince the Germans that Garbo's network is real, professional, and invaluable. They pay him more money. They send him praise. They award him medals in secret ceremonies, and every word he sends them is designed to bend their perception of reality. By 1943, the Allies are planning the invasion of France. The target is Normandy. But if the Germans know that, they will concentrate their forces there and turn the beaches into a slaughter. So the Allies create Operation Fortitude, a massive deception plan to convince the Germans that the invasion will come at Pas de Calais, the narrowest point across the English Channel. They build a fake army, inflatable tanks, dummy landing craft, false radio traffic. They station General George Patton, the most feared Allied general, at the head of this phantom force, and they use Garbo to sell the lie. Garbo's reports begin to describe increased activity in southeast England. His agents observe troop movements, supplies being stockpiled, Patton's headquarters. All of it points to Calais. The Germans read the reports and nod. It fits their expectations. Calais is the logical target. Garbo is confirming what they already believe, and that is the genius of the deception. It does not force the Germans to change their minds. It gives them permission to trust their instincts. By spring 1944, German High Command has positioned powerful armored divisions near Calais, waiting for the invasion they are sure is coming. And Garbo, sitting in his quiet room in London, has helped put them there. Now it is the night before D-Day. You are back in that small room. The lamp, the radio, the cigarette smoke. You know that tomorrow morning thousands of men will land on the beaches of Normandy. Some will survive, many will not. And you know that the success of the invasion depends partly on keeping the Germans confused, hesitant, divided. Your job tonight is to send a message that keeps Hitler's tanks in the wrong place. You compose the message carefully. You describe reports from your agents, fictional men who do not exist, suggesting that large forces are still gathering in southeast England. You hint that Normandy might be a diversion, that the real blow is still to come. You send it, and then you wait. The morning of June 6, 1944, Allied soldiers wade through cold surf under machine gun fire. Explosions tear through landing craft. Bodies float in the water. Medics drag wounded men behind disabled tanks. At Omaha Beach, the fighting is so fierce that for a few hours the outcome hangs in balance. Men cling to a narrow strip of sand, pinned down by German fire from the cliffs above. But the beachhead holds, and over the following days, more men and supplies pour across the channel. In German headquarters, confusion reigns. Reports flood in, massive landings in Normandy. But is this the main invasion, or a feint? GARBO's messages continue to arrive, carefully timed, perfectly crafted. They suggest that Normandy is real, but that the larger blow is still coming at Calais. Hitler hesitates. His generals argue. And the powerful armored divisions near Calais stay in place, waiting for an invasion that will never come. By the time German high command realizes the truth, the Allies have established a foothold in Normandy that cannot be dislodged. The invasion succeeds. The liberation of Western Europe begins, and one of the reasons it succeeds is that Hitler trusted a spy who was lying to him. After the war, the truth slowly emerges. GARBO, Juan Pujol García, is one of the most successful double agents in history. He is awarded the Iron Cross by Germany for his service to the Nazi regime. He is also honored by the British for his role in the deception. He is one of the only people ever decorated by both sides of the same war, one side for telling the truth, the other for believing his lies. But medals are not the same as peace. After the war, double agents are vulnerable. They have enemies, they carry secrets, they live with the knowledge of what they did and what it cost. Pujol disappears. For years, many people believe he is dead. His story fades into classified files and forgotten archives. Decades later, in the 1980s, journalists and historians track him down. He is living quietly, far from the spotlight, carrying the weight of a life built on deception. When asked about his work, he speaks carefully. He does not boast. He does not celebrate. He knows what he did. He knows it saved lives. But he also knows that he spent years living inside a constructed lie, inventing people, manipulating reality, playing God in a small universe of his own creation. And he knows that the line between heroism and monstrosity is sometimes thinner than we want to admit. So let me ask you a question. When you picture World War II heroism, what do you see? Do you see a soldier running into gunfire, a pilot diving through flak, a medic dragging a wounded man to safety? Those are heroes, no question. But do you also see the man sitting in a small room, typing lies into a radio, knowing that his words will move divisions on a map and change how many young men die on a beach? Is that heroism, or is it something else, something harder to name, something that makes us uncomfortable? Juan Pujol García did not fire a gun. He did not bleed. He was never in physical danger from enemy fire, but he carried a different kind of burden. Every message he sent was a gamble. Every lie was a calculation. Every invented agent was a thread in a web that, if it unraveled, could have cost thousands of lives. He lived inside a constructed reality, playing a role so convincing that the enemy trusted him more than their own doubts. And in doing so, he helped shape the outcome of the most important battle of the 20th century. Here is the uncomfortable truth. History is not only made by the brave and the strong, it is also made by the clever and the deceptive. Wars are won not just with bullets, but with lies, carefully crafted, perfectly timed, delivered with conviction. And if one man's lies can bend the fate of nations, what does that say about the world we live in today? How sure are you that the truths you believe about politics, about enemies, about threats, are not being carefully shaped by someone sitting in a quiet room feeding you exactly the story you want to hear? GARBO gave the Germans a narrative that fit their fears and their hopes. They believed it because it made sense to them, and it destroyed them. Are we any different? Would you be willing to live inside a web of lies, even for a good cause? Could you invent people, manipulate reality, deceive an enemy for years, and then come home and live a normal life? And if you did, would you be a hero? Or would you be something we do not have a word for, someone who saved lives by becoming for a time a kind of monster? I do not have the answer, but I think Juan Pujol García carried that question with him for the rest of his life. He saved thousands of men, he helped win the war, he was decorated by both sides, and then he disappeared, because maybe the only way to survive a life like that is to become invisible. The next time you hear someone talk about D-Day, remember this: the beaches were won by courage, but they were also won by one man in a quiet room, sending lies across the airwaves, bending reality until Hitler's tanks sat in the wrong place and young men had a chance to survive. That is the hidden history. That is the uncomfortable truth. And that is the question this story leaves you with. In a world built on information, how much of what you believe is real, and how much of it is just someone else's carefully crafted lie?